Hey everyone, what if I told you that we're gonna get the fastest and the cheapest internet connection in the next decade? Well, you may be surprised or you may not even find that possible, but in this video I'm gonna show you that how it's gonna be possible in the very next decade. So, this is Tech Studios and welcome to the future. So, when it started when the real life Iron Man himself, Elon Musk, announced that his company is gonna send satellites to give us internet which is gonna be faster and cheaper or even free. When you hear this, you may say, how? I'm gonna tell you how, and what is it, and so on. So, it came from the mind of a genius of our time, Elon Musk. I mean, when you look at their past, the SpaceX and the Tesla, uh, you might see that they're gonna do it because these two companies, especially these two companies, he has another other companies, but these two especially, they made many things which has been thought to be impossible. For example, reusable rocket boosters. So when I say it's not something that popped up in his brain, uh, I'm telling you the truth because you can see that these reusable solid boosters, uh, they're used for these satellites to go to orbit. So it can be more cheap and fast. So, I mean, when you're not spending your money cautiously on a project and the product is gonna be very expensive to, you know, give you back your money and give you some profit. So, the less you spend money on a project, the more it's cheap. So, these solid rocket boosters were made so that these satellites could be sent to space uh, with as less as possible. I mean, more or less expense, uh, less price. So let me talk about these satellites and compare them to our current technologies. So we're using fiber optic cables to connect to the internet, which is under the oceans. One of them, and the longest one, is the one which connects New York to London. It is 12,800 kilometers long, and the latency is 60 milliseconds. So, 60 milliseconds, it's nothing, you may say, but that's not the case because milliseconds matter to companies, especially to market investors. So uh, the less latency there is, the more there's a chance that they could succeed. And so technology companies, they're still installing these fiber optic cables beneath the oceans, but again, it's expensive and less efficient than it could be. I mean, less latency is the better, and the cheaper is the better. So, well, you may say that our current technology and internet speed is good, but why stop when it could be better? It's like not discovering, not creating the internet. When you look at it, we could gain knowledge and information from libraries. We still can, but when internet came, it changed many things, and so this Starlink. This how can I say, these couple of satellites, they're gonna change things. So well, how, you might say. uh, well, there's how. So I said that the longest one is 12,800 kilometers long. So long way and more latency. Well, there are some satellites which connects people or companies to internet, but they're so high in the orbit, so there's more distance to the target computer or device, whatever. So much more latency there is in the current satellite systems as well, which is 220 milliseconds, which is a lot. I mean, you could use a lot of money in 212 milliseconds, thousands of or hundreds thousands of dollars. So again, less efficient and much more expensive than the Starlink could ever be. I mean, uh, Starlink satellites, they have been sending them to orbit since 2018. First, they sent two test satellites, which named after a very famous cartoon character, Tintin, and so they sent Tintin A and Tintin B test satellites. So they have been successful. So after that test satellites, they have started to send 60 satellites each month. So they didn't do it regularly, but now this year it's more regular, and they really started to do the 60 satellites per month thing. So there is 500, I guess, satellites, which is the part of the Starlink project. So their main goal is not main goal, but the first phase is 12,000 satellites, and then when this phase ends, the final stage is 42,000 satellites. So they're gonna send again 60 satellites each month. After they have passed a certain amount, they'll start to send more 60 satellites each 2 weeks. So 120 each month. So the main goal is, as I said, 42,000 satellites. These satellites are special. They have their own navigation system, which is called the Star Tracker, and they have the revolutionary propulsion systems, the ion propulsion systems. These satellites are the first space things we have sent which uses ion propulsion systems, which is which has krypton fuels, not the Superman krypton, the you know the element on the periodic table, and they have also uh, collision avoidance systems, so they don't collude with anything, because apart from the Starlink project, we have many satellites in the orbit. So, and not just them. When when the number reaches 42,000, uh, there will be many space debris in the orbit. So these avoidance systems are very important, because when a satellite crashes, uh, it could destroy the whole satellite system, because they're going at very high speeds, and these satellites, and not just these Starlink satellites, I mean the whole, like all of the satellites we've sent so far, they're in the orbit and they are space debris, so very dangerous. That's why it's important for them to have uh, avoiding systems. Also, uh, they have solar wings, which gives them energy to work properly. So these are the main parts of these satellites. So that's all about it for the parts of the Starlink satellites. So the conclusion is that these satellites, the Starlink project itself, is gonna make uh, things better and cheaper, because, as I said, the SpaceX uses Starlink and Starlink uses SpaceX. Um, as I said, there are 500, approximately 500 satellites which has been sent and working properly. So at first, they thought about giving people some tests to use this internet connection in the midst of this summer, but due to coronavirus pandemic, they had to uh, cancel this release date. So, but there are some usages in Canada and United States, which Starlink uh, presume that their price is gonna be around $80 to $100. So you may ask, well, you said that it's gonna be free or cheaper than ever. Yes, I did, but there are only 500 satellites. The more satellites there are, the cheaper the price is gonna be. But now it's 100. Well, it's still cheaper than any internet connection provided by internet service providers, especially the satellites, the other satellite systems, which gives people, not people, the companies, to connect to internet. They're very expensive, and the normal regular uh, internet service providers, again, they're more expensive than the Starlink system. So the Starlink project has already passed its competitors in terms of price. So think about it. There's only 500 satellites, and their main goal is to send 42,000 satellites. So they're already cheaper than an internet. And think about what's gonna be when they hit the goal and send 42,000 satellites to the orbit. So probably it's gonna be like not free, but near free. They first thought about uh, collecting and repairing the damage using advertisements, but they cancelled that project. In the first phase, they just gonna go, as usual, but after that, they're gonna spend from the company's pockets, not from the customers. So why they're gonna do that? Because they will earn the money which has been spent. Also, they're very enthusiastic about this, which gives the project a little bit more momentum, so they can go faster and better. Um, so yeah, it's gonna be pretty interesting when they hit the main goal, because there's another thing, which is this system of satellites which will give us internet connection. They are not gonna be regulated by governments, because it's a how can I say? It's not a government. It's a company who sends the satellites and gives people access. So our freedom of gaining knowledge is not going to be regulated by governments, which is awesome, because there are many countries who block access to the internet, especially the Western Western sources. So, for example, China, India, Russia, all these governments can regulate their internet because the companies belong to them, not to other countries or something like that. But when SpaceX and Starlink installs this system, the only regulator is gonna be the Starlink, because Russian government or Chinese government, they have no dominance over a company which is overseas. So that means they will have a better understanding of the world, because I have friends who once lived in these countries, and their experiences are very odd, because when they just got out of their country and opened themselves to the world, they said that it was a very different experience, because the world they saw, it was not the world that their government told them about. So this Starlink system is gonna free people as well. So that's another advantage of this system. So the conclusion is that the interesting times are coming, and last of all, you may say that why they're gonna do that. Well, all this money is gonna come from the Starlink system. It's gonna be transferred to the main goal, which is the Mars mission.